I'm in the city of Preston in Lancashire, and this is the main cemetery. I've come in on an entrance off of a roundabout, but I don't think it's the main entrance. But one of the first ones I meet is this very tall angel who rather sadly has lost the ends of both of her arms, and the memorial underneath: in loving memory of my dear husband George Jameson, who fell asleep. Not getting that from here, you may see it better on the camera. 1906, in his 60th year. Thy will be done. And then Nellie James, their daughter, is underneath. Anyway, a fine example of an angel. This one here has got sort of trends of Art Deco look about it, and it's in memory of Frank, dearly loved husband of Janet Foster, proprietor of the Rialto Cinema, 1932. Well, that was right in the middle of the Art Deco period. Age 67. Janet Foster, 1955. Sidney, their son, and a few other names beneath. A nice distinctive memorial. A tall, slender column of polished stone, and the inscription is to Mary Moores, 1907. Note the urn on top of the pillar. And close by we have the identical memorial, although the top is lost in the trees. This is to Alice, the wife of John Marsh, 1908. An even taller column with the urn on top, and this is Joseph Foster, 1899. This time it's in a grey stone rather than the orange stone. This one's had the inscription relettered recently: Elizabeth Millicent Ogden, their beloved youngest daughter, 1960, age 71. And then Ada Brown, their eldest daughter, and Mary A. Hull, their beloved daughter. So who are they? On this side it tells us it's Joseph Foster, senior partner of Messrs Foster Brothers & Co, engineers of this town, and husband of Catherine Foster. So the three daughters we saw just now, none of them carry the name Foster. So they're all married and are all commemorated here without any mention of who they married, their husbands. Rows upon rows of these stones, pretty well preserved. That's the entrance we came in, and then the other side of the path, dozens, scores, hundreds of these stones, most of them quite readable. This one is next the path, but I've chosen it at random. Elizabeth, infant daughter of James and Deborah Shaw, 1877, 11 months. Also Alice, their daughter, died in infancy. Also John, their son, who died aged 3 weeks. Elizabeth Shaw, grandmother of the above children. Also the above named Deborah, wife of James Shaw, 1921, and James Shaw, who seems to have outlived them all, 1926. Another one picked at random, and it certainly seems that the style here is to remember all sorts of members of the family on one stone. The beloved children of James and Margaret Catterall, William, 1861, 2 weeks. Elizabeth, 1866, 1 year and 4 months. William died 1877, 10 years. Then Margaret, 1882, aged 1 year. And then James Catterall himself, 1895. Then Robert, their son, who died aged 37. And then Margaret Catterall, granddaughter of the above. She died in her 4th year. And then Margaret, the mother of the first named, she died aged 72. And Elizabeth, daughter, aged 70. You've got quite a genealogy of the family there. Another one not specially chosen, John Thomas, son of Thomas and Lydia Newton. He died aged 2 years and 9 months. Also Dorothy, their daughter, who died aged 11 months. Also Daniel, their son, who died aged 3 months. Also Maud, their daughter, who died aged 7 weeks. Daniel, their son, who died aged 12 days. Also their son, who died aged 6 months. This is catastrophic. And John Thomas Newton, Royal Navy, their son, who died from wounds and was buried at sea in 1917, a war casualty. And then there's, I think at the bottom there, the Thomas and Lydia themselves. And all the way along these lines we've got stones with really comprehensive family histories on them, of the ages their children died. All the way down here, and the rows back, it seems to be the style here. Very interesting. I've gone forward a couple of rows and just picked another one at random. Mary Alice, the beloved child of John and Alice Ann Fairclough, died aged 13 months, 1876. And then John Fairclough, who was drowned at sea in 1896, aged 47. Also John Isaac, their son, who died aged 31 years. Jane Hannah, Jenny, their daughter, who died aged 45 years. And then Alice Ann Fairclough, the mother, she lived right up to 72 years. Well, this graveyard is a genealogist's delight, a great source for family historians. Another one at random. Mary Jane, daughter of William and Anne Isherwood, aged 4 months. John, their son, who died 1877, aged 3 days. William, their son, died aged 9 months. And then William Isherwood didn't live to a great age. He was 40. And Anne, his wife of the above, and the beloved wife of Richard Robinson, so she remarried, and she outdid them all and she lived to be 84. Another one, and again I assure you it was taken at random from dozens, maybe hundreds here with all this history on. Elizabeth, the beloved wife of Thomas Wilkinson, she died aged 39. Robert Cookson, nephew, who died aged 8 months. Robert, infant son of George and Elizabeth Cookson and brother of the last named, 6 months. Herbert Cookson, their son, aged 6 months. Then George Cookson, who died aged 63. And Elizabeth, it's difficult to see from here, but I think it's 93. Just pan left, just to show you it's not an exception. James Woods died aged 30. William James, his son, 14 weeks. Sarah, his wife, died aged 39. Thomas Hayes, father to the above Sarah, he was 70. And then you've got Thomas Hayes, son of the last named, 31. And a couple of names at the bottom there. This is a family historian's delight. I've never seen a graveyard quite like this, with all the information on the stones. Let me give you another one. Not specially selected, Henry, son of Henry and Maria Bibby, 1879, 1 year and 7 months. Charles, their son, 1881, died aged 10 months. Then the grandfather, he was 75. Anne, wife of the last named, so presumably that's his grandmother. She died aged 82. Maria Bibby, the mother, aged 70. Ellen, daughter of the above named William and Anne, aged 80. And a couple more names at the bottom. So infant or young child mortality was very high, but if you got past that, you lived up into your 70s, 80s and even longer. Just had to give you one more. Again, not specially selected. Alice, wife of Henry Newsham, aged 44 years. Emma, their daughter, who died aged 18 months. Alice, their daughter, who died aged 26. Then Henry, Alice's husband, died 64. Henry, their son, died 62. And Mary Jane Newsham died 64. So you've got quite an interesting picture of the family there and their relationships. And all the way along here, all these stones have an immense amount of detail on them, something I have not seen at any other cemetery I've visited in the UK. You could spend days here reading about these families. Well, I've moved away from those hundreds of stones with the family details on, and yet it still carries on. Alexandra Clement Rayner, who was a doctor of medicine and worked in his town for 49 years, and his wife. And on the stone they mention Lucy, who was only 2 when she died, Hetty, who was only 6, and then their son Harold Rayner, 1961, home from Canada to rest. So even on the later stones we're getting a family history. And a pair of stones here. On the left we've got George Wilding and Eleanor, his wife, but there's inscriptions on all the faces, but this one here follows the policy that seems to be prevalent in this graveyard. Henry, infant son of Henry and Mary P. Sharples, 16 days. Joanna Wilding, infant daughter, aged 2 months. Joanna Wilding's second infant daughter, aged 3 months. And right the way down the stone we have other family members. At the very bottom we've got a surgeon, William Henry Sharples, surgeon. But he was only 46 when he died. That's not a great age. Well, I've come forward 20 or 30 rows in this graveyard, and the same policy is here, of giving all the details of different members of the family. I won't read through this one. This is just Daniel, the son of John and Dorothy Newton, and he was aged 11 years. A little detail on this one. William Barton, late police constable in the police force for the borough of Preston. He was only 28 when he died in 1859. Some taller columns here. I'll just show you this one in front of me. This one reads Edward Taylor, 1863, aged 33. And then it lists his children: Esther, 10 months, Edward, 13 months, and Thomas, 20 years old. This is a very large graveyard, and the stones have so much detail on them, and mostly well preserved. I don't know if I can show you the distance there. So many stones. And still they're laden with family information. As you go along here, all the stones Absolutely chock-a-block with details of family members. Of course we have the war graves mixed in with the rest. Sergeant W.C. Davis, Loyal North Lancs Regiment, 1915, aged 49. And beneath that the family have added his beloved wife Margaret Davis, who died in February 1914. So she predeceased him, died before him, 18 months before him. Nearby is another one. This is Sapper F.C. Dobbs, Royal Engineers, 1916, aged 37. But I noticed that immediately behind it is the family stone where he's mentioned again. Second one down, Frederick Charles Dobbs, son of the above, who died of wounds, 1916, aged 37. And like so many of the stones here, other members of the family are listed on the way down. Under the tree here they built this pyramid, and inside there are two bodies in stone, rather like the ones you find inside churches of medieval knights and their wives. This one is presumably a male at the back and a much smaller female towards the front. Sadly, the inscription is rather difficult to read. A couple of large horizontal tombs. Not so easy to get the inscription because they're on top. They don't wear so well up there, but this one is John Paley, P-A-L-E-Y. Some of the stones are under the shelter of these two huge beech trees. Well, they may be limes. A sort of magical feeling to the stones under here. Not so easy to see the inscriptions though. I've entered an area here which has rows of the war memorials. I'm not quite sure why they're spaced the way they are, but they're more traditionally spaced towards the back. There's 2 or 3 rows there. There are a whole mixture of regiments. Royal Engineers, Royal Defence Corps, Royal Lancashire Regiment, South Wales Borderers, South Lancashire Regiment, Royal Field Artillery, South Lancashire Regiment, Royal North Lancs, 1st Reserve Battalion Canadian Infantry, Royal Field Artillery, the Loyal North Lancs Regiment, Royal Army Medical Corps, all sorts and sources. I picked this one, just being a little different. Sapper H.A. Constanti, brackets of Cyprus. Royal Engineers, 1945, aged 30. Well, this style in the graveyard of listing all your family, or many members of your family, on one stone, whether they're buried here or not, is carried right forward onto the more modern stones. This one here has numerous names. Grace Topping, 1914, John Topping, aged 71. Their children, James, aged 22 months, Margaret, 14 months, George, 45, their grandson, aged 7 months, George Edgar Little, 54, Mary Ann Little, 94, John Stanley Little, 86, Madge Little. We're coming right down to recent deaths, right down to 2017. And it's just the style here, which I love, of giving all the members of the family remembered on the stone. They can't all be buried here, the plot simply isn't big enough. It's rather nice to have them all listed there. Another more modern stone with nice lettering. William 1890, Martha 1907, Selina their daughter 32, John William 39 and his wife 1971, Florence their daughter 85, and a couple more beneath that right down to 2006. This one's in a prominent position where the paths join, and a very large memorial, and the name is Pike on the right hand of the two centre panels. The Very Reverend Joseph A. Canon Pike, who died 1902, 34 years priest of the English martyrs, Preston, and still cared for. Fresh flowers growing in front of the memorial. At one end of the graveyard I've come to this Islamic section, and as seems to be their tradition, the area in front of the memorial is developed as a garden. Very picturesque. Flowers, got some of these small trees growing, but each one is a miniature garden if there's anyone left to tend it. Just show you a couple of the memorials. Mumtaz Hussein Uwaisi, 2016. One here from 2014. Very nice area with quite a different feel. And notice also that the trees are all the same type of tree which has grown on so many of the graves. But I'm not aware of what the significance is. Maybe someone can tell me. One over at the back, Thomas McGurk, 1929, aged 46. The stone was erected by the members of the Preston Borough Police Force as a mark of their respect and esteem. And then it mentions his son, who died aged 9, and his daughter, a couple of other names, and at the bottom here we have some later names as well, right up to 2021. I guess Thomas McGurk must have meant something special to the members of the Preston Borough Police Force. Like so many of these graveyards, you can stand in one spot and be amazed at the number of war graves. I'm looking at 3 over there. If I move here to the right, 2 more in the foreground, and then out in the background, 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And I turn through 180 degrees to the other side of the path. There are more, 3 more over there, 1 there, 2 there. You keep panning round. I can see 2 there in the distance. And here beside the path another one. So many. And then just as I'm about to leave the graveyard, I come across the children's corner. This is always the saddest place in the graveyard. Little Bradley here, just 2.5 when he died. Riom was just 6 weeks. Ollie Peter, 6 months. Harris was asleep when we met. Catlin, 6 months. And that's 15 years ago. Look how the grave is still attended to and looked after. And finally at the back here, Declan Sumner, 6 years old. And there's still a rate or what would have been his 21st birthday on the front here. And next to him with a picture again, James Peter Davies, 7 years old. Well, at that point I'm going to leave the cemetery here in Preston. Amazing place. Hundreds of stones with sort of the whole family genealogy listed out on it. Amazing, I've not seen that before, not in such volume anyway. This is a great cemetery, it's well looked after, the stones are in good condition. You could spend weeks reading the stories that they've laid out on the stones. Anyway, I'm leaving it now. Do come and visit it, it's well worth it. Till the next time.